Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Calling. I'm your host, Scott Jones. I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon or this evening, I guess, if you're watching a replay of it. But I want to remind you, even if you are watching a replay and you're not watching live, you can leave comments. We will read them, and we will certainly answer your questions on upcoming shows. And also take a moment and make sure you hit the like and certainly share this with your friends. I hope everybody is off to a good start of the new year. We're getting it rocking and rolling here in January, and it's got to be better than last year in some respects, and hopefully we'll keep some things going. But I am excited. I've got a guest here that I was just sitting and trying to figure out how long I've known you, Michele, and I can't figure it out. It's got to be 6 years.
I was gonna say it's probably closer to probably a decade in there.
Oh wow,
yeah.
A decade. God, it makes you sound old. It's like, I've known you for a decade. This is Michele Esquenazi, and you are affectionately known, and this isn't like a title you gave yourself. It just kind of happened.
Right.
As the Queen of Bail in New York.
I'm pretty much, Mm-hmm. That happened, years ago. My guys would come in and they would just call me Queen, and it kind of just stuck. So the Bail Bond Queen has been my title ever since.
Now we're talking like home base in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, we're going to talk a lot about bail today, and this is important. There's a lot of things going on you should know and things you should understand. And we're not going to tell you it's a perfect system because nothing is, but we're always working to make it better. What got you involved in bail? I mean, that's not just something people, maybe a kid watches the movie and says, oh, I want to be a bounty hunter. But how do you get involved in bail?
Well, it's a good question. So I'll give you the quicker answer, right? I was a single mother of 3 young children. I had a cousin that somehow married this bail bond guy. She was very wealthy. And one day he came home and he saw me and he said, what are you doing? You. And I said,
what are you doing?
And I was like, I'm studying to be a paralegal. And he said, you want to come and interview at my bail bond office? And I was like, mm-hmm. So I did. I got.
I'm assuming you're thinking, I just get a job and I'll still go get a paralegal, and that's where I'm.
Yeah.
You're not going in there like, oh, this is my life.
No, I wanted to just like get some extra money so I could buy clothes for my kids or whatever.
Sure.
So anyway, I got the job. Quickly, soon thereafter, realized that he was not the most up and up type guy that you've ever met in your existence.
Yeah.
So I thought, I think I might be able to do this on my own. And the rest is bail bond history.
Really?
Yeah. And I started Empire Bail Bonds, and Empire is the largest bonding agency in New York.
Now, it sounds like you and he aren't friends or friendly anymore.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the cool thing is he did give you a start. So that's one bonus.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
did you have other people helping you along the way? Because that's tough, especially you're going into an industry. How long were you working with him before you went on your own?
Probably 4 or 6 months in there.
That's nothing. And then you're saying to yourself, somehow in your head, you thought, I could do this myself?
I did. I thought I was damn good at it. And there's a lot of helping people. And I thought I was super good at it. And I said, yeah, I think I can do this. And I made a deal with a bail bond guy, got myself licensed. I brought my niece and my nephew into the business. They were very young kids. I think my niece was working at the supermarket and she didn't really want to come with me. And I said, too bad. And, my niece and my nephew have always been my business partners. They still are.
Still are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she's not bitching and moaning now, right?
No, it's 30 years later.
30 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Uh-huh. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That something was there a part of you that says, this is what I was supposed to do? When you started doing it, did you have that spark? Because you had turned away from what you were going to do now you're going in this new direction. I love those moments when you kind of say, I found my place. Is that what happened?
I really don't want to lie because you know me a long time.
No, don't lie.
I'm not a liar. I thought this is my way off of welfare with my kids.
Fair enough.
This is my way out of the jungle. This is my way to support my children. So maybe they won't start their lives with school debt, if they go to college and things like that. So, and they all are college graduates and none of them graduated with student loans. And so therein lies my successes.
Okay. To become the queen of bail bonds, though, at one point you had to own this shit. You had to really own it.
I think being a kid from Brooklyn, New York, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, it kind of like prepares you. Like you always know
Mm,
somebody's walking behind you before they start walking. That's
yeah.
Brooklyn, right? You always, you walk with keys between your hands, so in case somebody comes up to you, goosh, you kind of,
No,
clock
I
them
love
in.
it. I love it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it was always in my blood.
Hmm.
I've always been a fighter, and it just kind of made sense.
Did you know right away? Because what you've done, and we're going to talk about all the other things you do, but what you've done is you've taken just the bail business and turned it into a lot of help for people.
Right.
Was that something you developed on your own and said, wow, I could really make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I think when I first started out, there really weren't and this might sound cliche, but there really weren't as many addicted youth as there are now.
Well, that's just a numbers fact. That's
Yeah.
just a fact.
So I started seeing this common thread, of parents that some of them were really well to do. Some of them were just, making ends meet, one's a teacher, the husband maybe is a bus driver, that kind of thing. And their children were awry. So I thought, when they get out of incarceration, with Empire, we make them check in, we have a lot of rules and regulations. You can't travel, things like that. So I started talking to mom and dad about that when they were signing up the bond. And I said, well, what would you like little Johnny to do? In a perfect world, what would you like little Johnny to do? And mom said, well, I'd like him to take out the garbage on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He stopped doing that. And dad said, well, I'd like him to go to church with us every Sunday. And I said, oh, okay, well, we'll make that part of the bail conditions.
You're kidding.
No. So we started doing that. And
that is brilliant.
Yeah. And it started, the defendants themselves really didn't know any different. They kind of thought, oh, shoot, this is what I got to do. I got to take out the garbage, and, if mom and dad called us and said, little Johnny's not going to church, we'd bring him in for what we used to call a tune-up.
Okay. All right.
And we bring him in and take him in the back room and sit him in the chair and talk to him about the facts of life and why it was in his best interest to do what mom and dad wanted him to do, because they're the signers, they're the indemnitors on the bond, and they essentially hold his liberty. And so do we. And we would remind him of who holds his liberty. And a lot of the times, little Johnny would, kind of become more compliant and didn't come to us a second time or a third time. But a lot of the times when narcotics were in the way, I found that we did have that same offender over and over again. So I had to kind of think, now what am I going to do? How am I going to help this mother and father? How am I going to help this kid get a better disposition with potentially a start in life? Like maybe they won't have to go to jail for 8 years. Maybe if the judge knows that this person is going to go inpatient, maybe I could be more helpful. So one of the questions I started asking mom and dad when I realized, let's say it's a narcotics charge, possession is always, a giveaway. I would say, do you have health insurance? Is your daughter or your son covered by your health insurance? Would you like to see your son or daughter go into a program? Oh yeah, we've tried, but they just won't go. Well, what if we made it part of their bail condition? And we spoke to the DA and the judge about it. And they're like, can you do that? And I said, I don't see why not. It's my money. It's $100,000.
Why not?
So why not? And, with that, it started getting bigger and bigger and, gaining momentum and it started working.
That is crazy.
Mm.
Now, I'm sure, listen, whether you're just doing the bonds or you're doing the extra things like you do, there's always disappointments. It happens.
Oh, of course.
And you got to toughen yourself up to a little bit, although it does affect us when we can't help somebody. Of course it hurts. But have you been surprised at the amount of successes you've had, or has that affected you? Has that changed you in some way to see how much power you really can help somebody get in their life?
Well, a lot of it's affected me in different ways, because a lot of the successes that I didn't really know about, I was just kind of doing what I thought was my job, have come to me essentially years later and said, thank you for what you did.
Wow.
I'm a this now, I'm a that now, I'm a college coach, I'm a mother of 3, or whatever it is. And some of them have ended up in death certificates.
Yeah.
Some of them have ended up back in the streets, the parents unable to find them. I always say a lot of the times, addiction wins. It's a really hard battle. So I don't take it lightly.
No. But if you fail 99 times and succeed once, it was worth doing the 99 because
Yeah,
that one person is important.
of course.
Now you're looking at things from a lot of different angles here. Instead of just saying you're a crook, I'm going to bail you out, you're going to do this. You're looking at the human side.
I have to.
Are we seeing a lot more? And you kind of alluded to it already. That wasn't the same back then. Is there a lot more either mental health or addiction involved in your clients than you've seen before? Is it getting higher and higher?
It is, because there's no consequence to crime. And that's the problem with bail reform. So when there's no consequence to crime, for example, a drug addict will burglarize homes over and in the area in which they domicile.
Right.
Over and over and over again, because if they can find a $10 bill or a cute little ring or this or that, they'll get it so that they can get their stuff. You know what I mean? So, and if there's no consequence to the burglary, in their minds, they know, hey, I'm going to do 6 burglaries in the neighborhood and I'm not going to get arrested and I'm not going to go to jail. Then they're going to do the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th, right? So that's been happening quite a lot.
I've never understood the term. Now, what we're talking about bail reform is there was a political movement to get rid of bail.
Yeah.
And not use bail because there are they say it's unfair because some people can afford it,
right.
Some people can't, and that's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
So they say this word bail reform. Now, to me, I'm an educated man.
Okay.
Reform means to change, not to eliminate.
That's true.
So why are they saying? Are they trying to put paint on a pig here? Just tell the truth. You're trying to eliminate bail. If you want to do reform, you sit down, look at it, and say, what can we do so we can be better? That's what reform is. But that's what you guys do on a daily basis. You're always trying to improve what you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are, an industry of mom and pop nation, multi-generational, small mom, shops, agencies all over the United States. And we work 365, 24/7, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, Mother's Day, all of that. But as it pertains to reform, I think the easiest answer is Soros money. So when you're a policymaker, see, when I first started lobbying back in 2012, when I found out about bail reform, I was of the impression that when you speak to policymakers, as long as you can prove that there's the fundamental differences between right and wrong,
yeah,
that of course they would err on the side of right, because right is right and wrong is wrong. You don't send your children in the highway to have a, kickball game. Right. So that I quick realized, oh, okay. They were asking me to go to their little, events, but you had to do $250 or $500 to get in. So it was really about money. I didn't know that. I wasn't edumacated at the time.
Yeah.
But I quick realized that George Soros, who's a billionaire, who essentially wants to change the criminal justice system throughout the United States of America and is doing a bang up job, he was involved. He's in charge. Essentially, him and all of his vast amount of nonprofits and advocacy groups that he funds are in charge of changing the narrative. So while we are the low-hanging fruit, we're at work, we're working to support our families, they're being funded by billionaires.
Yeah, makes it a little easier to function, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned speaking in Washington and doing those things. You got really involved. When did you start getting involved in the political end and being a spokesman for the cause of bail?
Back in 2012, I had found out about those 2 little nasty words, bail reform, and I went up to Albany. I knew a lot of the senators and the assemblymen just from the neighborhood, from where I grew up. And one of them at the time, Senator Golden, said to me, Michelle, you coming up, you'll do a little slideshow and you'll show us all that it sucks, right? I said, yeah, it sucks. Okay, you'll do a little slideshow. You'll show us all that it sucks and it'll be fine. Nothing's going to happen. I said, okay. I don't know. I had never done it before, but the one thing that I've never been afraid of ever is telling the truth, and I've never been afraid of speaking in front of people when I know that I'm a truth teller.
Right.
So, I did my little slideshow, and then not that long after that, our government in New York State became a blue trifecta. So we had a Democratic governor, a Democratic assembly, which is our lower house, and a Democratic Senate, which is our highest house. When bail reform started, you had a Republican Senate. So whatever they wanted to do, the Senate checked them. And they were like, yeah, not so much, not happening. But once it became an electric blue trifecta, I knew that the Soros money was going to prevail, and it did.
Wow. So let's talk about what you do here. First of all, you got Empire Bail Bonds. Is that the place you started at the beginning?
Yeah.
Was it? You didn't have to go through a bunch of different companies. You started one and stuck with it.
Yeah, it's always been Empire, because New York is the Empire State.
And I assume you started with one office and your two relatives there.
Yeah.
What does Empire Bail Bonds look like now?
Empire Bail Bonds is statewide. We have agents all over the state. And when my nephew was getting married, as he was getting older, I was like, we have to open him up another office because he's going to get married. He's going to want to have children, and all of those good things. And that's kind of how the expansion of Empire happened, not because of any other reason than my niece and my nephew were getting older and they were getting like marriage age. And I said, oh, wow.
They needed to have something to work on their own. And
right. So we started expanding, and we made it through the bail reform storm. A lot of bail agencies in New York didn't. It's not a particularly big industry in New York. And here we are.
Wow. Still got the original office or no?
The original office? No, we don't have.
Okay. That's
we don't have that.
That's neat. Okay. So it's Empire Bail Bonds. If you want to see more about it, go to bailempire.com and you can read all she's done and see what she's doing there. But then now you were involved years ago with PBUS and different organizations that were brought everybody together. And then there was a shift in all of that. And then now you've got NABA, National Association of Bail Agents. Mm-hmm. This is something you started up. Mm-hmm. And what is NABA all about? What are you trying to do?
Well, NABA is the only national association that not only includes bail agents, we also include the bounty hunters, right? Because we believe that the bounty hunters are the right arm of our industry. And without them, we're not successful. We're only half of a body. So we can't say that we represent an industry if we're not also speaking of our brothers and sisters that do the really dangerous work of finding fugitives and returning them to justice so that a victim is made whole, right? Without a defendant being in court, a victim never has the opportunity to make a victim impact statement and things like that. So we take our jobs very seriously.
And there's a difference. I want to make sure people understand, because they might not know that the bail agents and bounty hunters are different people.
Very different people.
Every once in a while you get somebody who does both.
Both, yeah.
But it's not that often. Usually it's like you got the people who handle all the business and all the contracts and the money and the agreements and the courts.
Right.
And then you got the guy waiting. If they step out of line, I go get them, bring them back. That's kind of what we do, right?
Yeah. So there's several of us that do both. And NABA is the only national association that also includes bondsmen that don't write through insurance companies. A little complicated, but in the South, bondsmen write on themselves, essentially. And then throughout the United States, a lot of bail agents use insurance companies. So we include, it's like an all-inclusive, essentially, right?
All the pieces come together.
We don't charge a lot of money. It's $50 a year.
Oh, geez.
And we give all the money back to state associations to battle bail reform. Last year, we gave $1,000 checks to about 8 different bail associations throughout the United States of America that are fighting bail reform in Indiana and Colorado and California, everywhere. So we're really pleased with the result, and we're always, looking to grow. We have a new executive vice president who is very savvy at all this technological stuff with websites.
That's
and
good. That's
stuff.
good.
And
Yeah.
many of us aren't. So we're really happy to have him, and we're moving forward. So we're pretty happy about it.
And this is interesting because if you go to most major metropolitan areas, you'll hit a couple of streets where there might be 3 or 4 bail agents. They all seem to like group together because it's usually near the courthouse or near something or the jail or whatever it might be. But you might see 3 or 4 and you're thinking, oh man, they're all competing. And it's like, yeah, you are. But at the same time, if you're going to survive bail and if you're going to do what you need to, you guys got to band together. So you're competitive, but you're not. That must be kind of a funny line to walk sometimes.
Well, it's actually disconcerting because a lot of the bail agents, because they're so competitive with each other, they develop this deep sense of Hatfield and McCoy sort of thing.
Oh, terrific.
Right. So if I come into their neighborhood and say, listen, let's try to work with John and Joe and Sue. Well, he's done stole my bail back in 1995, and I'm not about to forget it now, Miss Michelle. So it's like, okay. So it's a little difficult to unite an industry that is insanely competitive with one another.
That's cool.
We're street entrepreneurs.
But having NABA now they're all over the country is what I understand.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you're up to for membership, but you've got people in every state in most areas.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot of good information being traded back and forth.
Absolutely.
How important is that?
Every single day, it's super important, right? So what I do as the president of NABA is what I want our membership to do is get with local policymakers, really local, like the county executive or the sheriff, or maybe a great pastor from your area, right? And I can help them with, a talking point sheet and set it up. But we want to invite them into the bail agents day, right? So we want them to know in their communities, what in the hell do they do? What do they do? Because it's very mythical. Because Dog and Beth had a show all the years, everybody thinks that we run around with blonde hair and big boobs and in high heels, and that's what we do.
And that was just Dog. So I'm kidding, Dog. I'm kidding.
She should rest in peace. But what I'm saying is that is not a real depiction, nor is the big fat guy smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
So we want to bring them in, and that's part of our advocacy to our membership is bring in your local community leaders, not just policymakers, community leaders, and show them what a valuable resource we are.
I've been to some of the gatherings, the conventions, different things. And if I walk in a room with 100 people, I might look around and say, there's 2 or 3 that I would pick in my head to be bail agents. The rest, not a clue. I wouldn't have looked at them and even thought it for a moment.
Yeah.
You've got everything from surfer dudes to lipstick girls. And then you got guys who are just look like good old boys without any business stuff at all, but they're running huge businesses. It's amazing the different kinds of people that it draws in.
And we are predominantly minority run. So 65% of our industry is run by women, and people are. Hold
on. No. Back up. 65% of the ownership of bail agencies are women. Mm-hmm. Wow. See, now that's something people don't know what even close to know.
Well, women are wow.
But women are already wow, yeah.
Yeah. So
I can't figure them out. That's why I'm
not
single.
Particularly shocking
but,
to me.
No, but in that industry, it's like it doesn't look like the industry. I think people need to pay attention more.
I mean, think about any industry, right? I mean, it's always been originally run by the Good Old Boys Club, and bail is the same. But if you tell a woman who's a bail agent or a bail lady, bail bondsman, you can't. You can't fit in. Watch what we do. We go around you, through you, to the side, this, that, the other thing. And all of a sudden we're your competitor and we're taking all your bail. So
I think it's brilliant that the Good Old Boy Network is being outshined. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's about time.
It is. It absolutely is. And like I said, most of the people that I met, just great people to begin with. Every once in a while, not everybody's perfect, but see, you've got this. Now you're also a member of the New York State Board of Bail Agents. Is that what it is?
It's the New York State Bail Association.
Bail Association.
It was founded in 2007 as a nonprofit before bail reform started. I founded it. Initially, I founded it to actually report bad operators to the state.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And then over the years, when 2012 hit and bail reform came, we put together a board and a legislative team, and we've been at it ever since. We've never missed a Senate session in Albany. Our voices have always been heard. Although we're a small cottage industry in New York, we have always been at the table instead of on the menu.
Wow. So let's paint a picture for a moment. If bail, if some people got their way and bail went away, what are we looking at? And you've got experience in this. You've seen how neighborhoods change because bail is no longer, or cities change or whatever. Without being over the top, but really, what are we talking about? We talked about more crime. We talked about recidivism. What are we talking about happening?
Well, we're talking about the fundamental differences between accountable release and unaccountable release, secured release, unsecured release, right?
Okay.
So it's like going on the airplane, there's a ton of turbulence, and you're like, there's no seatbelts. There's just no seatbelts. So we're just going to roll the dice and give it a shot and hope we get there, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's not a particularly good plan, right? So what happened for example, in the state of New Jersey, where Chris Christie was the governor boss at the time, and he's a Republican rhino, he's a piece of garbage, and he wanted to be the president of these here United States of America, and he got the right donations. And even though bail was not supposed to go away in the state of New Jersey, he called a special session on like a Saturday, and he put it through, and bail reform went through, and there was no more private bail in the state of New Jersey. And it put all of my brothers and sisters across my river completely out of business, annihilated the industry completely. And what he did was he said, okay, we're no longer going to use the bail industry. We're going to use ourselves. We're going to use the government to
because that's always a great answer for any problem, right?
Right.
Holy shit.
So we're going to use the government to monitor offenders in society. Well, as you know, the government works 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, if you're lucky. These pretrial officers don't have the power of arrest. So in the state of New Jersey, there's no bail. You no longer have a constitutional right to bail. So if your son goes to Rutgers University and he's accused of a date rape, he's either going to be released into this big government program that is funded by the taxpayers of the state of New Jersey.
And I imagine it's slower than molasses on everything they do.
And it's also an abundant failure, but their beautiful graphs don't indicate that. And then, or you're going to be incarcerated through trial like China and Iraq without one chance of bail. So the 8th Amendment of the Constitution gives you a right to bail, but the state constitution of New Jersey was changed because of Chris Christie and all of his bullshit.
Yeah. Now, we're not talking about everybody should get it. I mean, you got a mass murderer there. Obviously, you hold them. And we're not talking about kids who get caught with 2 joints in their hands, because that's not. But we're talking about that middle of the road where almost all crime exists. It's not all this way and this. This is what you see up here, all the nasty. But there's everyday people that get caught in bad situations.
Right.
Or people who maybe they become addicted. They break into a house. They commit a crime to feed their habit. And, what we know is that if they could just get a chance at getting a little better, then they could change. So these people can get lost without having the support of.
They are lost. And that's why EDPs, emotionally disturbed people, walk the streets of New York City now and are killing people and throwing them on the subway tracks, because they're not getting their antipsychotics. They're not getting their SSRIs, right? So they're hearing the voices. They're schizophrenic, right? So they used to get their meds when they were in Rikers Island or in an inpatient facility as a prisoner, right? But they were all released. So now where do they live? They live on the streets, and they don't have their medications. So to them, throwing somebody on the subway tracks is fun. They don't know that it's a bad thing to do, because they can't tell the differences between right and wrong. Not that I'm advocating for them, right, but they have been completely overlooked by government. So I think government's position on emotionally disturbed persons is, you know what? Let them die. Let them kill each other. It's a lot less money.
Which is a horrible, horrible thought. It really, really is. But And maybe if there is going to be a change, if you want something, then your industry should be connected with mental health industry and connected with, and that should be encouraged and really thought about. And thinking about the things you've done to help people with their lives. This should become a standard of procedure, and say, listen, because if we can reduce the amount of crime, we make things that are better for everybody. So that's tough.
Bail, just so you know, bail agents throughout the United States of America do this every single day. Right now, I am thinking about a bail agent that I know. She's in North Carolina. Not only does she pray over everyone and bring them food and diapers and all of this, she'll take them to court. She'll take them to church. A lot of our agents throughout the United States are involved in ministry. And for them, this is part of their ministry.
I did notice that, because they really are you guys are of service to people.
Yes, we're right there in the middle, in the storm. We're right there. Yeah. So when you get that call, when mom and dad get that really scary call in the middle of the night, they haven't been able to find their son or daughter, and they finally find out that he or she is incarcerated in another state. They're devastated. Bail is a very emotional transaction. So we always want to make sure that it's filled with heart and professionalism. And I believe that that's what bail agents do throughout the United States every single day.
I would imagine you're not always the most loved person when you start helping them, but at the end, they're very appreciative, right?
I guess sometimes,
but it's a tough time. People are dealing with a tough thing,
Sometimes they have to go back to jail because they did the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they love us then, but that's why it's accountable.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always, if people want to learn more, do the TV shows help? I mean, I know we watched Dog for years, and we've seen the Cops show, and we've seen other shows like that. And there's another bail show that I see on once in a while. Does that help or do you think it just gives them too much of the sensational stuff?
Look, I think that every industry has a sensational TV show, right? Like, look at the pawn industry, right? Look at, Saving Dogs has a show, right? I mean, so
we got the TV show Intervention, which is not real.
Right.
It does highlight some things, though.
So, I don't want to shit talk my people, right? I'm not that person. So if they got a show, great. My only concern for that is, do it honestly and show the people really what we do, not only the big bad bounty hunter, or the really sexy bail kitten, so
you did that good.
Let's just try to portray ourselves as who we actually are. We're on the phones serving our kids dinner. We're trying to help somebody with their homework, taking a bail call, calling the jail, doing this. We're doing 700 things at one time. And that's actually more of a window into who we are.
Wow. You know what? If you're in New York, look her up. If you're in trouble, look her up.
That's true.
But if you want to just learn, I mean, educate yourself. Find out what's going on in your state, in your communities with bail. Get involved. See if there's something that you could do to help, because there's always something that you guys are trying to get, bring attention to or bring light to, and get involved if you really want to learn more. Do not judge it based on one politician's words, because you're going to get one politician that's going to tell you one thing, one is going to tell you something else. Go out and do the education yourself. Find out what's going on, and then make your decision. It's 2024. We're at the beginning of the year. It's so good to see you down here in Florida.
Thank you.
And you're away from the cold New York right now. Yeah. What are you hoping for this year? What is your wish for this year? If you can make something come true for your industry, what would you like?
I would like for all the policymakers throughout the United States of America to understand and acknowledge that bail agents and fugitive recovery agents are the most successful component of every criminal justice system in which we operate. And if anybody would like to know more about what we do, you can look us up at nationalassociationofbailagents.org. And we are happy to talk with you and speak with you and come to your communities and teach you more.
All right. Fantastic. Well, I wish for those things too. Once again, Michele Esquenazi, the queen of bail in New York and throughout the United States, I think. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your voice carries. People listen. And I thank you for putting all that work in, because you do a great. I've had the benefit of working with some of the people that you've brought down to treatment, and to watch that miracle happen because you didn't give up on them was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching The Calling. I want to remind you to like this show, share it with your friends, and leave a comment. We will catch up with you after it's played for a little bit. It's on YouTube, it's on LinkedIn, and it's on Facebook. And again, thanks for watching. We will catch you next time right here on The Calling. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.